gender though online. That's okay.
I found 2 more months.
Is there anyone else on? You can ask her just her. Just make sure.
Are you going outside, Chris? Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. And you got the YouTube recording started.
Yeah, it's recording. Can you hear us, Chris?
It's hard to see who's
Can
on.
can we hear you? Can you unmute?
Hello.
Yep.
You're good.
We're good, thanks.
We don't get them anymore?
Well, they just got removed by the clerk, but they're sitting right there, so.
You're ready.
Okay, hang on 1 second.
You're good.
This is good.
Hmm?
Good.
Is from Safeway?
Yeah. Proxy Kim to put it out. And for anyone who gets a lot of sushi,
Good job.
it's really cheap compared to when you go get the little packages. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Uh-huh.
Oh, like the
All
big
right.
planners?
No worries. All right, I hereby call to order the April 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Town of Frisco Planning Commission. Katie, would you please call attendance?
Lily,
Here.
Lena Lesmus. Here. Ira Tain.
Here.
Candace Day. Here. Andy Stabile.
Here.
Kelsey Withrow. Here. And Jess Forsyth is absent tonight.
Great. First thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes. This would be the approval of the February 6, 2025 Planning Commission meeting minutes. They've been distributed. If commissioners have any comments or corrections, please voice them now. Seeing none, can we take a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nobody.
Okay. Passes unanimously. Now we have public comments. This is for citizens making comments on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Any public comments that anyone in the audience may wish to make on a subject not on this evening's agenda can be made now. Citizens making comments should state their name and address for the record, be topic specific, and limit comments to no longer than 3 minutes. I don't see anybody in the chambers that's a member of the public. Is there anybody online?
Just Julie, and she actually was part of our working group with the comprehensive
Yep.
plan, so we'll see if she has comments on that, but.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the comprehensive plan approval resolution 2025-02, recommending the council's adoption of the updated 2025 Frisco Comprehensive Plan. And I will turn it over to Chris.
Thank you, commissioners. I'm so excited. Today's the day. We get to adopt the comprehensive plan after almost 18 months of work and 2 different project managers, same consultant. But I'm really excited that we're going to be able to adopt this tonight. If you all agree with the changes that we've made since the 80% draft, we are at the 95% draft. So there's some little bit of changes that we can make in language or tweaks or things like that. There are some things that we want to add in based on the capital improvements plan that the town council adopted, or they're reviewing. They adopt it, Katie, or just review it? Oh, that's okay.
Sorry, I
that's
couldn't
okay.
take minutes and not listen.
That's okay. The capital improvements plan, because what we want to do is make sure those
It would be reviewed and approved by the council on Tuesday
on
night.
Tuesday.
coming
Okay,
up.
thank you.
Yep, sorry.
So anyway, so what we did is we took all those elements within the capital improvements plan and then compared it to what's in the comprehensive plan. So there's a few tweaks of like, we want to add in if funding becomes available or things like that for projects that are currently unfunded, but on our kind of 10-year list. So we really wanted to make sure that those 2 documents speak to each other, as well as the housing plan inform the comprehensive plan, as well as the community engagement. But without further ado, I want to introduce Jessica Garo with Design Workshop, who has really helped us through this whole process. And she has a presentation for us tonight.
So Jessica Garrow with Design Workshops. I've seen many of you in person early in the process and on some online meetings as we've gone through. So really glad to be here to share our progress and prepare for adoption. So tonight we wanted to spend a little bit of time just doing a review of the process. What have the last 12 to 18 months included in terms of studies, community engagement, and then review some key aspects of the plan. And then we wanted to make sure that there was some time for discussion. And so we'll be able to go to any sections of the document that you might have questions on or areas where you're needing clarification. So just as a reminder, this is the consultant team that's been supporting the project, supporting the town in the comprehensive plan. Design Workshop is the lead consultant. We've had Tool Design supporting on transportation elements, and then Spirit Environmental on sustainability and particularly on the water element of the plan. So as a reminder, what is a comprehensive plan? Really importantly, it is not zoning. It is a long-range guide, long-term guide and vision for the town of Frisco moving into the future. So it identifies vision and goals. Really importantly, it's also required by state statute. So communities are required to adopt a comprehensive plan, but there's a little bit of flexibility of what that includes and making sure that it really is true to the town of Frisco. We are addressing a number of elements, again, thinking big picture, and as Chris mentioned, making sure it's tied to reality of capital improvements and funding and things like that. So looking at topics ranging from housing, land use, transportation, the economy, et cetera. So it's that broad vision. So in terms of the overall process for the comprehensive plan, again, really focused on making sure we're meeting some state requirements, requirements coming out of DOLA. So there's some specific language that's included in the plan relative to water supply as an example. It also is required to address things like tourism and other elements. So that's covered in the draft in front of you. We also want to make sure that our goals and actions are really measurable, that they're achievable. So again, linking to what's possible and thinking through the next 10 years. And then also informed by community engagement. So we'll talk a little bit about the community engagement process, but we had a number of engagement opportunities and really great participation from the community. A goal we heard from you as well as from our working group was that the plan really needs to be clear, supported by the community, and really straightforward. So we've tried to do that in the structure as well as the text itself. And then again, just being a plan that can be referenced in decision-making process. This is the overview of our process, and really excited. We're here April 2025 for adoption. We had 4 key phases of the work starting in February of last year that I'll review at a really high level as we go through these slides. So first, really want to thank all of you for your work. We've met with you a number of times. Some of you participated in our work group meeting, had joint meetings with town council. So really just appreciative of all of the effort that this group has put in to help craft the document. So really quickly, what have we done to date? So our first part of the comprehensive plan process was really grounding our work in understanding of existing conditions and thinking about what are the future trends and really understanding that. So there's been a number of really great and important planning documents that the town has already completed. So those are referenced in the plan, and really importantly, building off of the work that's been done. So we worked quite a bit with staff across departments to make sure that elements from these plans were incorporated into the comprehensive plan. In May, we developed a number of memorandums that are included in the appendices, and those highlight different aspects of the town, kind of inform current conditions. So that included an economic trends and market profile, an ecological assessment, a transportation assessment, and a map atlas. So those were really important pieces to ground that work. So from there, we moved into vision and values and had a number of conversations with the community in focus groups, our working group. We had some pop-up events and really focusing in on those vision and values. So last April, we had 7 focus group meetings. There were 73 total participants. And we had a series of questions around topical aspects. So we talked specifically about historic preservation and housing and transportation, things like that. And it was really important to understand what are some of the challenges and opportunities that the plan needed to address. We also had a number of in-person activities over the summer. So that included a launch and a community survey. We had over 540 community survey responses at that point in the process, which was really great. And we had some pop-up events. Really importantly, all of our engagement activities were completed in both English and Spanish so that we had opportunities to hear from a broader spectrum of the community. And we had some folks on the work group and participating in focus groups that were really making sure we were hearing some of those different perspectives that you don't always typically hear in an engagement process. Our first community work group was in June, and we've met 3 times with the community working group. Again, thanks for some folks who've participated on that, and folks online who are participating there. Really important group to help highlight, again, challenges and opportunities, and then thinking about the future. Where are some places where we can really be forward thinking on some of our topics, but also on future land uses. So we met in December with that group and with all of you to really right size our recommendations and do a little bit of a dive on the future land use map, which we'll show here in a few slides. So maybe just to summarize, the plan really is Frisco's plan. It's been shaped by the community, by staff and the leadership. And as such, we have some guiding principles that are specific to Frisco and are included here on the screen and are part of our topics that we have included in the plan. And it's a way to organize the thoughts within the comprehensive plan. So from vision and values, we then moved into alternatives and trade-offs. And this is when we started really diving into future land use map. What's the scale of development that should happen in different areas of the community? What types of land uses do we want to see? We also got as detailed as what happens on a ground floor on Main Street versus on an upper floor. And so making sure that there's that really clear guidance within the framework of the future land use map. So as part of that work, we had 3 different future growth scenarios that we tested with the community. We really wanted to understand from the community as a whole where they wanted to see development, maybe where they didn't want to see development, what areas needed to be preserved and kind of retained as is versus areas that might be opportunities for catalyst sites. So ultimately, it's a little bit of a mix of all 3 of these scenarios that are in the future land use map. So this is the future land use map that is within the draft comprehensive plan. Again, really importantly, it is not zoning, but it is a tool for how to think about future development within the town. So it incorporates past future land use map that you saw in the December meetings with some changes, such as extending the Main Street area to include West Main Street, and we created a district for Summit Boulevard. We heard from you as well as from council that it's really important that the plan be implementable and easy to understand. So as a companion with the future land use map, we have some pretty detailed land use classifications, and those provide information on what you might see in these different land use areas. And we really got into a little bit more of a granular level than sometimes comprehensive plans have, because we wanted to make sure that what we're saying for Summit Boulevard is specific to Summit Boulevard. What we're saying about East and West Main Street is specific there. So we got into that detail. So the future land use map includes description for character as well as design criteria. So we talk about what types of land uses are supported here, what we want to see in terms of connectivity, what we want to see in terms of park, open space, and civic space, how the future land use category links to the economy as well as sustainability and into equity. So the other piece of the comprehensive plan is the 3-mile plan. There's a requirement in state statute for communities to adopt a 3-mile plan that identifies what is occurring in the 3 miles surrounding your jurisdiction. So it includes some description of key areas. You can see a little bit on the screen, but included in the document. And there may be subsequent information and updates here, but this was important to include to make sure that we met some state requirements. Right. Goals and strategies are really the programs, policies, and projects that support the town moving forward and really dive into what is going to be happening next in terms of implementing the plan. So there's a number of toolkits that are included within the comprehensive plan and again, those action steps. So we are today, and again, trying to incorporate all the feedback that we've heard throughout the process. So final draft is presented to you tonight for your review and recommendation. And then we have anticipated adoption on April 22nd, tentatively scheduled with Town Council. So following adoption, we will make any final updates that are needed. So date updates, reference to ordinance numbers, resolution numbers, making sure everything is buttoned up and ready to go. Okay, so just a few more slides that I wanted to highlight for discussion to make sure that you have time to talk through some of these pieces. So we thought that it made sense to spend some time today, particularly on the future land use map and implementation pieces, because those are items that have changed a little bit since the last time you saw it. Others have been pretty consistent since your last review, but they're also really important tools that you all will be using. So we thought we would share just a little bit of information there. So again, this is our future land use map, and I wanted to just highlight these future land use classifications that I talked about. So each future land use classification includes a one-pager that has imagery of what we might anticipate to see in areas with that classification, and then it covers those specific topics that I referenced. So in addition, one of the key things that we heard from you all in our past conversation is that we wanted to make sure that the plan addressed some of the sub areas in a little bit more detail. So rather than adding additional classifications and just kind of layering on things on that future land use map, we created sub-area opportunities that are summarized in the plan, and you can see the sheets on the slide that really highlight those areas more specifically, and they have a more detailed explanation of some of the design and planning considerations within each of those 3 areas. And then the kind of exciting chapter at the end is the implementation piece. And so we have included an implementation matrix that's intended to be something that you can flip to, that Town Council can flip to really support the implementation of the goals and strategies that are in the plan. So we've included action items in the implementation matrix. We identify who's responsible for those. So who might be collaborative partners to help implement those pieces. We've identified priority as well as investment that is anticipated for each item. And then identifying funding that is available kind of as possible. It's maybe future funding, need funding. So trying to, again, create that pathway. And then showing alignment to the 6 guiding guideposts that are within the plan to make sure that you're seeing how each implementation step works and would implement specific portions of the plan. So this next slide illustrates what that looks like. So it's in a table format, easy to kind of be able to mark up and check off. So I know that that was a lot to get through, but we wanted to give you those kind of key highlights of what's included in the plan. And I think I'm happy to, and staff happy to answer any questions that you might have. We can also pull the plan up if there's anything specific that you'd like to jump to as part of your conversation.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Simply, here's the easy one. We'll start easy. That 3-mile radius, is that like from every outside boundary is 3 miles from every part of Frisco, or is there one point you start at?
So the state statute requires it from the boundary of the town. And so it's a little bit of like a bubbly boundary all around. And the other thing that's really important about 3-mile plans is that not all areas in there are anticipated for annexation. Many of the areas surrounding Frisco are in Forest Service land, for instance, and so those are not going to change, but that's the geographic boundary that the state has defined. So
I'll weigh in really quick, if you don't mind also, because they gave us a great start on it. We'll still have the official 3-mile plan document. Also, it's required every year by state. And for some reason, the town hasn't done it since 2019. But we don't have a lot of changes to make. There's a few specific sections that we're looking at tweaking, but that's all going to come to you for official review and adoption, also as an actual plan. We just ran out of time to get to that. Concurrently with this, I take full responsibility. I was going to take the lead on that part of it and haven't gotten to it yet. So it's part of our grant money. We actually can't close out our grant until we have a final adopted new 3-mile plan also. So you'll see more about it in case you're wondering what it's in it besides what you've seen here. You'll get a more in-depth, especially as you think about some of these areas that we think could change over the next couple of years. But, yeah.
And I think of the plan pretty much as aspirational rather than enforceable. Would that be about accurate?
yeah, I think that that's a good summary, with the note of a really important part of implementation is integrating it into your land development code so that it is enforceable and part of what you're reviewing for land use applications. And I don't know, Katie and Chris, if you want to add to that.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that we review every development application, major site plan, minor site plan, to be in compliance or substantial compliance is kind of what it's called for the comprehensive plan. Now, sometimes you can look at the comprehensive plan different ways, but we want to make sure it is at least in alignment with those goals in the plan, those 6 goals. So that's how we review it. And then we're also in the process of taking the recommendations, should the comp plan get adopted, and then do those code changes and make sure that we bring to you and the town council updated code language so that we are in alignment with the comprehensive plan.
You said one thing, and I could be, maybe I just don't know this. When does a building be permitted, or when does a job become planning fodder versus building department? You know what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think. So it starts with everybody. When an applicant wants to build, we bring them into what we call development review committee. We
No
bring
matter what they want.
anything that's going to be big enough to a new single family house or bigger.
Okay.
Okay, and some change of uses that seem pretty extreme, like a retail going to a restaurant. We'll do it for, because they're going to care about water, sanitation fees, things like that. So first step, we bring them into our development review committee. We invite and usually have good attendance from Excel is a big one because they have a lot of red flags these days with power and transformer clearances, Summit Fire, water, sanitation, public works, building, and then planning. Then we make sure they really want to proceed or that they should figure a few things out before they do, like usually with Excel and Summit Fire primarily. Then they'll submit to planning. It'll go through planning. You can submit a building permit while you're under review by the planning commission. However, you can't be issued a building permit until it's been approved by planning. So they can overlap. And historically, because our building review had such a queue of like 6 to 12 months to get through a review process, people were submitting them as soon as they got referral comments that we get for planning. And then now our building division that we've contracted out to is very quick. They do everything with it. They get initial comments within 21 days of a big project. So we're not seeing that rush. The word's getting out of, we don't have to get in a 6-month queue for the building division right now for initial comments. But so they do overlap a little bit. And then sometimes 602 Galena is a really good example because Chris has the building permit plans to review right now for that project. They submit their building permit. She's pulling the plans that planning commission approved, and she checks the conditions that you gave, and she makes sure all those conditions have been submitted by the applicant. And in this case, I picked this one because they had some tweaks for the building that the planning commission gave a special condition for. That was addressed by the architect, and we don't sign off on a building permit until we make sure the plans match or have been addressed correctly by the applicant. And then planning will sign off on a building. Does that help?
Well, to some extent, so if somebody, let's say, wanted to build a single family home, at the planning, at your discretion, I say, we'll call you planning. You either are gonna bring it to us or just put it through the building permit process.
Family home wouldn't go to you, but it's getting a very in-depth review by staff that
Okay.
takes a while. We still are checking every single family home with the code for planning.
Right.
So same thing, just instead of you guys seeing it, it's going through the same review and timelines, basically quicker because we don't public notice, but.
Sorry. Take away from the.
You do.
Com-
Oh, you tell understand how it
I'm gonna
all.
say, do you have any concerns? So when it's comp plan related?
Not
Because you
specific.
started out by saying this isn't code or this is
No, it wasn't, it
subjective.
wasn't germane to the actual discussion of the comp plan. That's what I was saying. It was kind of off track, I thought, a little bit.
Okay, because I mean, even if this is what's it called, like a high level document, we do use it every single time an application comes before us. So if you're concerned about anything, that's what I'm asking.
No.
No, okay. Kelsey?
I don't have any questions.
Oh, we'll go to April.
I have a example I want to talk to that's similar to what he was asking. So in the kind of the character definition of Main Street, it says small scale commercials, right? Commercial and retail. So if Starbucks wanted to put a Starbucks on Main Street, do we have to have that in the code to say, no, we don't want national chains, or does it
You
fit
would have to
within?
put it-
Okay, so that's our only way we could combat those types of things. Okay. I just wanted to understand. That's my question.
Do we have that in the comp plan? That we don't want national chains? on
No,
Main
it just
Street?
says small scale commercial. That's why I was bringing it up,
That's
because
a
I'm like,
good
I don't want to
question.
see a Starbucks on Main Street, right?
That's different than like, but well, we have a gas station.
But we have a like.
So,
There's
actually,
something
we
in
don't.
there.
People.
Think we
um,
do, right?
yes.
Yeah.
So what happened was,
Questions
it used to be. in
or
there.
comments?
So you're right in that we used to have the code itself prohibited drive-throughs of any kind
Right.
on Main Street. That was when we had that Main Street corridor district in the Summit Boulevard corridor district. And then the town redid the entire code around 2018 to give us the UDC. And they went to residential versus non-residential development guidelines, and that didn't bring in because it's for residential versus non, it didn't bring in no drive-throughs on Main Street, wasn't carried into the code. So it actually has not been in the code since 2018. The one thing for people who don't want to see drive-throughs on Main Street is that anybody who has came and tried to come in, as soon as we give them the traffic cues and what you need, they're not
Work.
finding the land
Right.
to be able to put that drive-through queue, traffic queue. So we have a limiting factor, but it's actually on our long-term, meaning someday you'll get them when we have time, probably next year, because we're gonna do a lot of code changes soon, to bring that discussion back, because we've also heard from different council members that they want the town to make sure we really don't ever allow a drive-through on Main Street. And that would go
Right.
along, not necessarily with the national chain, but same intent,
Right.
basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Because, so on your topic of the national chain, like you can have, like on Main Street, Breckenridge, it's a small, the Starbucks isn't like in a historic building, I think.
Yep.
So you can have a small format Starbucks.
Yeah.
But it would still be a Starbucks.
Right.
So I guess two different things.
Yeah.
If you're trying to, recommend that we
Yeah,
don't have,
Focus on local. Or focus on Colorado
yeah.
offerings, right? That's what I'd like to see. But that sounds like that's a code discussion for later.
Sounds like it's a good discussion for later, and there's nothing in the comp plan that would guide that
It's-
conversation right now.
Generic, right? That's what I was asking, just that description. Yeah.
So even though it's not in here to help you out, it is on our, we have a long list that planners have that they keep track of when we're like, we should fix that in the code, or let's
Oh,
put that on our code, change
got a
that.
list.
Drive-throughs on Main Street is on our list to be bringing forward.
Right, okay.
So we won't lose track of it at least.
I think at one point we also talked about, not that I'm advocating for this, but we had also talked about no ground level real estate offices.
That was gonna be part of, I'm sorry, we're getting really off track.
Yeah.
Enjoy's a snack. I mean, so many mountain communities are struggling with these same issues, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that was supposed to be addressed when the town did some Main Street plan. That was back when Bill Gibson was here.
Mhm.
Him and Joyce Algier were gonna move forward with a Main Street plan. And a lot of that was because the public was talking about how office spaces and how first floor Main Street. I don't think that has maintained any strength. That would be something that the planning commission could ask staff to bring back up. I don't think that's on our list right now, I'll admit, but we're happy to if you wanted to work on certain uses on the ground level on Main Street, then that could be on the list to talk about.
Any more questions? Andy?
I have an easy one and then maybe not an easy one. For one, there's an image that goes with our gateway page. It's actually an image of Foots Rest. And it's recommended architecture in the gateway. And it's a picture of what's going to become a landmark project on Main Street, which seems a little confusing.
Thank you.
I think we should have a different example photo there. The other one, I guess, is more of a can of worms. Based on this comprehensive plan, you've already talked about, you sort of alluded to it a minute ago. Where do you think the most immediate changes in our code are we going to see based on this comp plan? Where is this comp plan, in your opinion, the most out of sync with where our zoning code is right now?
2-3 spots I can think of. One of them, and it doesn't, I'm not gonna put them in a priority order because it's really what you guys tell us and or what the council tells us. The council seems to be very big on us redoing the historic section of code. And that I think is opening, not a can of worms in a bad way, but it's not something that we can bring, like they've taught in the plan talks about this, have a group, come discuss it. Get some experts in the community. Do we want to define what historic means? Do we look at what the background is more than the structure, like the historical use? That's all stuff that seems like the council is really pushing us to be looking at.
Yeah.
And so I can see that potentially coming down the line if they direct us to do that. I can also see the Gateway and Main Street, some of those design guidelines could be a little bit easier, quicker fixes potentially that we've talked about. And even though we don't see, I don't think we're gonna see any big redevelopment in that area soon. I do think it'd be great to get it personally in the code.
So more about the design guidelines rather than necessarily allowed uses?
I think
or-
allowed uses is super easy to crack too. I'd be happy to hear from all of you and maybe you even think about it a little and just email me different thoughts, because we have a long list and we really would like to, as soon as this is done,
Mhm.
we've put those on the back burner. Lighting is gonna have to get changed, not because of this, but because of what we're doing with lighting. Landscaping, we have you're gonna see landscaping soon, because we need to start making it match Summit Fire and Firewise. And the code changes coming into fire this June or July. So we have our list of things we know, but honestly, they're more the red flags to us that we've been our priority. So we'd rather hear from you what you want us to focus on first.
Okay.
Sorry, there's a long way to get to you tell us.
Let's see if you see historic preservation and some design guidelines in.
As far as the most vocal things we've heard about doing the comp plan, I think those would be the hotter topics to hit, but I think there's a lot of other changes that we could do easily that we shouldn't wait on potentially, like the design. I mean, the planning commission has asked us to look at Chroma for how many years and we haven't done it. Like, I would love to just knock that and get it done. And
Done.
find another effort to not keep looking at Chroma, but instead of bringing
Done
just
so much.
Chroma.
Is she? Hi, Donna.
Yeah, so instead of bringing Chroma forward individually, I'd love to bring more of the development design guidelines and incorporate it at one time instead of doing piecemeal. So,
At one point, when we were looking at some of the earlier versions of this, we were talking about also how the boundaries given in this comp plan don't necessarily align with our zoning boundaries. Are we looking at moving those lines at all based on this plan or moving?
No,
We're not
it's
going to
really
be able
gonna
to get
be-
those to align?
Yeah, it's really gonna be applicant driven. It's not gonna be the town that will initiate those zone changes.
Okay.
So if an application comes in, we can say, well, this is what the planning commission wanted to see in the future and what town council wanted to see in the future. Does your application, or it could be a rezoning application, speak to what the future land use map says?
So we can get things that are sort of out of zone, out of character for that zone, but in character for the comp plan.
Well, they would have to go through a rezoning if they were out of character of that zone
But
district.
it would end up being an isolated rezoning of one.
Well, you can't do that anyway, because it would be
Right.
illegal. Spot zoning.
But I guess that's what he's saying, like, so if the town is not gonna initiate rezonings to be in alignment with the comp plan. And if it's gonna be applicant driven, then an applicant would be forced to come in and essentially do a spot zoning.
Which we can allow. I think I feel like our land use category, unless you have some different opinion, then tell us. I think we're really in line with the zoning, but if we missed something,
I guess that was the question
Yeah.
is, did we get that? Because
I
I know.
think we got it right.
We looked at some specific examples in earlier versions of this where the zoning
correct.
and the
Do you wanna,
and
if
the
you wanna
districts
look
in
at
this
that
were
map,
not lining up.
yes, so a lot of the changes planning commission made at the work sessions and things, and also we got some we got some individual comments from some of you commissioners too, saying, well, why is this that way? And that was actually great, because we looked at each one of those properties flags, some of them we changed. A big example is that orange triangle where Boulevard Bend area, that one along Summit Boulevard, we did change back to residential.
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of individual ones like by School Road that said this shouldn't be it. And we looked at what the land use allowed and it did match the zoning, even though it seemed like a different terminology. to
Okay.
use. So I actually feel pretty confident.
Yeah, I guess the thing that's a little bit confusing just from this map here is that, we have low, middle and high density in the residential neighborhoods. And
Yeah.
here we're kind of lumping some of the mid with the
Mhm.
low and some of the mid with the high. And that
Yeah.
seems like we might see some places
Yeah.
where, well, which is it?
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if it would have been worthwhile to go ahead and get a mid district in there so that it could more accurately align with our residential districts
Yeah.
and zoning.
Chris and
Because-
Jessica can look at those categories a little better.
Yeah, I
too.
would just be curious about that because again, we're gonna have different recommendations based on this document for residential neighborhood mid to high and residential neighborhood low to mid. And some places are gonna get caught in the crossfire there a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, I think.
I would maybe add to the conversation is wanting to really think about integrating some of the ideas for missing middle housing and just diverse housing typologies within the land use classifications. And so trying to start to think about and giving a pathway for the town to maybe update your zone districts as you move forward to allow different typologies. And so I think that's one of the ways to use this land use classification, because that low to mid is, I think, 1 to 8 dwelling units an acre, which is pretty broad, but it still means you can do your single family neighborhood. You can start to think about, well, maybe there's a duplex or maybe there's some townhomes. And so it's trying to give you that flexibility in the future.
Yeah, I think those places where that mid kind of is in one or the other might get confusing a little bit as we move forward. So it might, I don't know if we want to try and bring the zoning code to more align with this.
Yeah.
Which I'd be in favor of, but in the interim, we're gonna have some, I don't know where those lines are, where the mid is crossing into both boundaries, but it seems like there might be some mixed signals that we're sending people if those boundaries don't align with our zoning code.
And if our intent isn't to rezone properties that are different in the
Yeah.
comp plan.
Yeah, it just seems
It's a
like
good
getting
question.
those to line up, whether by adjusting this document
Yeah.
or looking at redoing our zoning a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah.
would be worthwhile.
So
So,
Mike, we are gonna do initiated town rezoning, but we can rewrite the zoning descriptions within the code.
That's a
So-
good point.
I think that's what these classifications set you up really well to do, is to start to think of.
He's in your head too, so you can like bring it up.
yeah, I just, it would be interesting to see this map overlaid with our zone districts and understand kind of where those conflicts might start to pop up.
Yeah.
Because, clearly with mid being in both of those neighborhood districts on this map, there's going to be some places that are confusing to people.
And I guess I'm curious, why wouldn't we initiate any rezonings?
I just in my head didn't think I'd heard much about wanting it until now. I think if we do, we need to do it a little differently than in the past. We've had a lot of negative comments about when the town, it actually didn't rezone it wasn't even a rezoning, but the town took away the right to have mixed use or multifamily in around the Gateway area. And there's a lot of large residential chunks back there, like behind the hotel stuff. We've had a lot of backlash. Those property owners were actually never told we were taking that use out of the zone district. And it was done legally, but I just also in my head, I'm happy to make changes if needed and warranted, but I would like to bring in more property owners who would be affected, even if you think it's simple, like taking out multifamily residential that really impacted people who thought they had land they could build by right on a whole bunch of townhomes and condos, and now they have to get a conditional use.
Yeah, certainly. If you're taking things away,
Yeah.
that's hard. But if you're adding
Then
things,
it's better.
Then
yes.
it's better.
And I think light industrial will work on, because we definitely need to add some more affordable housing, upper level housing all over. So I was thinking like property rezoning, change RL to RM. I don't see us doing a lot of that straight out.
but in that particular case, the property owners probably would be stoked.
Oh, they would love it if we put that. back in.
Sometimes though, sometimes people say, well, I bought in this zone because I didn't want to see these bigger projects.
Mm,
next
that's
door."
true.
Neighbors don't.
Right. Mhm.
It's a great
Right.
point. Yeah.
So go up or down, you're gonna get some resistance, but it's our job to do what's best for the town, not
It is.
necessarily each individual homeowner.
Yes, but I would like to invite homeowners to be aware in the future, which we
Sure.
apparently didn't do in the past. Any
No
questions?
question. I have a couple questions. Super high level, were there comments that you received, say from this group or whoever, that you weren't able to address or incorporate?
You want to answer that? one, Chris?
Like, obviously not every single
Yes.
comment, but you know what I'm saying. It's just,
We did hear repeatedly about like short-term rentals and things of that nature. And so we do have short-term rental regulations. The town council wanted it to stay out of the comprehensive plan.
okay.
So that's what that's the
Another-
first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, the next one that comes to my mind is we as staff weren't aware of the capital projects list and of unfunded and funded until it was done pretty recently. And then it actually went to council before staff saw it. So a lot of staff from all departments were like, oh, where's my project here? Where's my project here? And we had written and had things from the community. We heard from the community, they wanted certain amenities or certain things. We had put it in the plan. Then all of a sudden we found out it's unfunded for 10 years. So a lot of that stuff we didn't necessarily take out because of funding. If there was a grant, we want to go for it, but we had to really lay back a lot on if funding becomes available, like Chris mentioned. So we had a lot of comments from commissioners and public who really wanted certain things. Those certain things we basically had to become fluffy on because the town council is not going to fund. I mean, they're not going to be funded unless we find a grant opportunity.
You're gonna amend the comp plan before there's funding for whatever project.
Exactly. And that's kind of what it, especially even the 10-year, we're not gonna have we're gonna reanalyze in 5 years per our code for the comp plan. So I think that is the big one. There's a lot of things that we had department heads really want that the community wanted. And unfortunately, we had to back out of a lot of it. And the reason is we're not gonna put something in and strongly say it's gonna get built in 3 years if there's no option.
Yeah.
For funding.
That's good, because I really do think that all the plans need to speak to each other, otherwise, which one's more important? The other question I had is the 3-mile plan is really short. It's essentially 2 pages, right?
Yeah, and it's really, it's a piece to set the town up to do the full 3-mile plan. So it references the state statute. There's some requirements, in the state statute. This is, I think, 4 pages. I'm working with the community that's trying to get 1 to 10 pages. I'm like, I'm not sure we can do that, but we'll see. So I think more to come, and it sets stuff up.
We're actually gonna make it smaller because by state statutes, you only need like a page and a narrative. But as we're looking at it, we think it's worth just editing what we have if edits are even warranted.
And I guess I'm thinking of the one in Silverthorne because it's an appendix to the comp plan, so it's like at the end of the comp plan. Because usually, okay,
And
that explains it.
communities do it differently. I mean, when you go to look at your 3 mile plan in 3 years, you're still gonna have this comprehensive plan, right? When you look at it again in 7 years, you'll still have this comprehensive plan. So it does need to be kind of a standalone piece that can be updated as needed.
Yeah, I would agree that there's probably not enough detail in this section of the comp plan, so.
We'll have water and emergency services fine tuned for each area, sub areas. We'll do the sub areas like we did last time. If anyone wants to write it, feel free. Any takers? Who's got time? Who's got hours of their day?
Hill.
We'll let you edit it. That'll help me out.
Those are all my questions. Any other issues? Do we need to have a discussion about adopting the resolution?
Did we open it up to the public?
Oh, sorry, yes. I'd like to open it up for public comment. If anybody, there's nobody here in the chambers, but if there's anybody online that would like to speak, please unmute yourself and give us your feedback. Seeing none, closing the public comment. How do you guys feel about approving a resolution?
I think we've put a lot of time into it. I don't think this is spur of the moment, so I'm good.
Yes, thank you for all your hard work. And even listening to like, like the pictures need to match and it feels much more Frisco oriented now in this kind of final phase.
Well, and a lot of props and thank you to Design Workshop. They took a lot of scrutiny and edits from us and the community in a good way, knowing our community, and they rolled with it and they gave us really great ideas, like even things like the implementation. They're like, do you want it to look like this, or this? And they were great at showing us what it could be and then having us kind of pick what we thought looked best for the town. So you guys did a wonderful job. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. That's really great. And thank you for coming in person. And I can't believe 18 months. Congratulations. Jeez.
Yeah. Great.
I know, Chris popped in right in the middle of it. Props to Emily Weber. She kicked this off
Yeah.
before she went over to Silverthorne, and then props to Chris for taking it on and diving right in there first day in Frisco. So.
All right.
Thank you to all of you for providing comments and feedback to her as she learned the town too, so.
Good job.
And thanks, Chris, for dealing with all of our comments, including mine.
She learned a lot. It was,
Yeah,
I feel like she
it was
was the
good.
town way better than anyone else who just comes right in after a year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Start your job in another community, I think.
Read a motion?
Yeah.
I move to approve Planning Commission Resolution 2025-02, a resolution to adopt the 2025 Frisco Comprehensive Plan.
A second.
Okay.
Or do we have discussion now?
No.
We're done.
Take a vote.
Can we take a vote?
Yes.
Day,
Yes.
Tane,
Yes.
Stabile,
Yes.
Withrow,
Yes.
Lessmus.
Yeah.
Motion passed.
Congratulations.
Nice job. So it'll be in council and what's the date? Sorry, 22nd?
22nd.
Sorry, you can keep that. Feel free to offer any last minute thoughts, comments that you have to Chris, please, ahead of time. I would request if you're going to go to council to speak pro or con it for anything, please let Chris know ahead of time. It's spring break week. I admittedly am out of town and so is Diane McBride. And so she has no support from anybody above her at this meeting, directly above her. So if you're gonna have questions or comments or you hear anything, let Chris know so she's a little bit prepared before she's doing this at the council by herself. She'll be fine, but I just don't want anyone to spring anything on her. So, challenge. Okay, leaving for a week during this adoption. You got it.
So quick question on process around the code, because I haven't been through this before. So do you guys take everything and make the changes necessary and then just let us know, or do we
Nope,
participate?
you're
in
gonna
that?
participate
Okay.
in everything. One good feedback we've heard from commissioners about a year or two ago was that staff was kind of drafting and bringing it to planning commission to vote on.
Mhm.
It was a pain because felt like you were put on the spot. You didn't have as much say when you should. So we now come to a work session for most of them. And so
Okay.
you'll see a work session in the topics and then it'll be in your packet. we'll get your feedback. You'll direct us how to write things, and then we'll start drafting. We'll bring it back to you. When you're ready, you'll recommend a vote to council, but then council has the official vote on a
Alrighty.
code amendment.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
But yeah, you'll see a lot of work sessions as we move forward. And if applicants continue to not give us complete chat applications, you'll probably see then code changes sooner rather than later. If all of a sudden we get piled up with your meetings with big applications, we'll step back a little, but we anticipate seeing a good chunk of code changes based on the lack of information and applications we have right now for you. So, yeah, awesome. Okay. You wanna
I have
cover
a
those?
question. What's going on with our air filtration system at
Oh.
310 Main Street?
Did it get painted? Painting is temporary. Did it get painted?
I am.
Okay, he
I guess
told
you-
me last week he was going to paint it as a temporary, trying to disguise it a little because he is hearing.
Is
from
that the big
everybody.
silver thing on
Yeah.
top? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, good.
So-
Was it on the plans and
I
now
didn't think it
frozen out
was.
of code because it's no longer on the
And
third
that's
floor.
what Attorney said,
Yeah.
because-
Right there, like ginormous.
I just am so confused how this happened.
Somebody's
and-
balcony looks right at it.
I know, it's awful.
Yeah, so if it's brown, it's only because he's trying to minimize the reflection right away for now. Our town attorney said that because the building division, former staff issued a mechanical permit for it there, we cannot, despite planning never having approved it and it not meeting our third floor step back, we cannot say anything about it. All that we can do is require screening around mechanical equipment. So he's supposed to be submitting to us and we're gonna bring it to you. It's gonna be hard because you're gonna have to approve something, but you can at least, we're gonna let you have a say in what this screening is. I talked to him last week about it and he said it's gonna be brown to try to help for now because is hearing from others too how bright and reflective it is. And we will be getting an administrative site plan. He hasn't forgotten, so he's working.
Is there any way around it? Like if he wanted to do something different?
If he wanted to, then yes, he could. Yes, but it seems like the way the architect designed the building, it actually wasn't feasible, and I won't speak to the technicalities of that, but it probably wasn't designed the right way, and this was what had to work for him, but I don't know enough to comment on if that's true or not.
This seems sadly reminiscent of AC Marriott, where there's a building, plans, and then there's mechanical plans, and for some reason, they don't get seen by the same people.
Well, this was what rubber stamped by somebody walking out the door.
I think it was before that, but I don't know if, yeah, so.
It's not in code and we have no
I know, those are-
recourse. Just like trees that get taken down in the right of way, those kind of things. I mean, this is built, it's there.
Exactly, and the only thing that in the future will help is mechanical permits for anything like this are now going to a planner to sign off on, which
Yeah.
was never done before. So we did make that adjustment where we're requiring them. And most jurisdictions, my understanding, so I keep looking at you, but is that most jurisdictions take one set of plans. So the mechanical are included in plumbing in that building. We're very unique where we have different sets. We don't want that. Our contracted building inspector official thinks that that is not conducive to the community and that they don't understand when they come from other places that we have these different sets of plans filed differently. So also, as far as your point of you can submit one thing on building and different on mechanical, eventually we're going to get to where we're gonna go to one plan set and everything's included under one building permit. I think most jurisdictions do. So that's kind of a glitch in our
And you
system.
agree that's the way to go?
Yeah, typically you would see that would be listed. It doesn't always make it on the elevations, but it would be in that same set of drawings. You'd be able to see it and preview that set. Somewhere in that set.
So there was a building permit set that didn't show that. And then there was a mechanical permit.
I went
that
to a different
appeared.
department.
Yeah, the mechanical person submitted his own permit and it was approved on
Oh.
there. And that's why we shouldn't have separate permits like we have historically. So John would like that changed. He'd like us to come more in sync with what is customer friendly and makes more sense, so.
And not like,
And
not in
that's what's-
compliance with your site plan approval. No, there's no such thing.
There should be. And that's why we're signing off on planning before they're allowed to issue any more. The
So
guy-
will they have to remediate this prior to getting CO?
Yeah, we won't sign off on the CO until he
The
has
screening,
screening.
so he has to
correct.
come back before us to get.
Technically, it should be administrative, but I just feel like it should come to you guys in case there's some kind of aesthetics that you could have any kind of say in as far as a wall brick versus whatever.
And if there's a way to like, instead of screening,
You can say it,
Get
but
something
it's so
smaller?
far in. Our building official has said to us, because he's been working on it since he started here, and he said that the way it's been 2 months ago, before I asked our town attorney, was right at that week. He's like, if you can get him to stop there, we can have him, he's in the building. He can redo things the way it hasn't been filled in yet. It's basically too late now. I mean, he'd be taking apart the entire building. So I had gone to our attorney, he gave me that answer, and that's kind of where we sent Gene. So he's gonna say it's not feasible to reopen the entire building and all the walls and the work he's done to change the ventilation and mechanical.
Fire rated chase up through units, probably would be what would happen. You lose square footage and functionality of those units that were where you want to move that chase, which would be.
I think it's gonna be hard to
Tricky at
get
this point.
1.7 for having that sitting right off your balcony, right? So we'll see if they can sell it.
Maybe, I don't know, people are getting what they asked for.
Yeah, I
I
know.
just
On
don't
Main
know
Street.
what is Building it, why you'd want to do that to a pretty building
I
and just
know,
throw it
yeah.
on the front there. I mean, when you bought the plans, you should have said, where are we gonna put these?
There's a lot of features in those plans. He said that even every window was sized wrong. Like,
They went through several different sets of hands, that
Architects.
design.
yeah, and
So
it
there
showed
was,
he regretted in a way that he didn't just hire a new architect and start from scratch. But he's he's been very frustrated with the plans he bought
Wow.
based on the designs. But yeah, it went through a couple of architects.
and owners.
Yeah. and
So,
owners.
yeah, a lot of different hands in that.
Despite him putting that on there, I will say he's been wonderful compared to many developers for us to work with. He's super easy go, like he's
Good.
responsive when we've had questions come up about other things. He really, I think, wants to do a good for the community by what he's providing. He really thinks, and I think that just was outside of his concept of what he thought about. Give him a little, he's a nice old gentleman.
Do we have now things in place that they're
Yeah,
not moving
design
on to
off
the
the
next step
planners.
before we see this and?
The mechanical permit wouldn't even be issued in the future on like plans like this.
Okay.
Yep, so.
That's learning lessons.
Now, if it happens again with our new contracted building official, then I'll be a lot more upset because we've started this process with him. So I don't, hopefully it won't happen, but I'm also trial by error too, but. Any other questions? I just have a few updates I'll get to.
Split rest, anything?
No updates on Footrest. I did give, because at a recent planning commission meeting, Andy had asked for the plans to see what was changed. So I guess I only sent them to him because I didn't know if everyone cared. I wanted to kind of see if you had any comments. The gist was Bill Gibson did an administrative approval to remove the employee units out of that building, allow them to go somewhere else in town. They had a property, but I don't think we ever saw it still. And some, what they called minor architectural differences and
They
changing.
also added units.
Because they
addition-
removed the
I feel like
employees.
this needs to come back at this
That was gonna be my comment, and I think we've almost touched on it in the last one. That going back and looking at the administrative adjustments that Bill
Yeah.
approved without bringing it to us.
Yeah.
I would hope that in the future, something of that magnitude would come back here.
Yeah.
Because looking at it, the other thing that was really interesting I found is, I was trying to figure out, the top roof is 52 feet in the air with a height limit of 40 feet. And
Did they do the historic overlay?
what's that?
I have to see if they did
they
the
did.
historic overlay.
And so that's just kind of a funny thing. And then there's no third floor step back in several portions of it on the street, which I've had to deal with personally. And it's like, how did they get this
Good
approved?
question.
And so, yeah, but again,
Was it before we put in the third floor step back? Cause it's been that long.
Actually, you might be right, because it did used to be,
Was-
remember there was that sneaky way, it was 10 feet back from the property line.
stuff on,
But if it's built on the property line, it would have had to have that. But if people, that's how I think Estates of Galena, they went all the way up because they stayed 10 feet back, so they
I
didn't.
think this one is, it's right on, what is the east side is Fifth? Is it
Fifth, yeah.
or Sixth?
Yeah.
So that facade right along Sixth is right on the property line.
Isn't
It's 3 stories up and I don't know how
Yeah.
they'll prove that. It's just funny that looking at it now, with some context that it got approved, but, it doesn't seem like there's a lot we can do about it right now unless their permit runs out and they have to come back.
Correct. And since the town manager had them move the buildings in the fall, that keeps them going.
Yeah.
I did have, I will say, John, our building guy, I asked him a week or two ago to contact Kelly Foot and ask him what the status was coming up. Because I was curious and John needs to work with him if he starts building. So I did, John was going to look into the timeline.
So does he have 2 more years as of fall?
No, it's, I think 6 months-ish and then it could be continued some, I'll have to look, don't quote me on any of that, but it's not 2 years. It doesn't mean your planning gets, it's basically if progress continues to be made and that counted as progress. But he was gonna start by June when he did that. And he paid all of his
Of
permit
23.
fees, which was over $1 million in the
June
fall.
24, and
I
then now June 25.
I just
It's gonna
can't believe
definitely
it's
be
still an
started.
open application.
Yeah.
But I think also to get back to your point of administrative, no, that's why even like the prospectors is gonna come to you, McDonald's is coming, McDonald's is coming to you at the next meeting, that was one of my updates. That really, we almost could have just had an internal review, because it's just a change of use.
Mhm.
But same thing, we felt like it warranted a planning commission review due to the traffic and things like that. I mean, you don't really look at the traffic as much, but we felt like it was a borderline, and I made the call to tell them to come to you. And then this,
Appreciate it.
yeah.
It's highly visible like that,
And actually, that's
commercial.
great. I've emailed Lena. You might have even given me that. Sometimes I email Lena now and I'm like, what do you think? Should this come to you? Every time the answer is yes, and I appreciate it because I'm like, okay, it's gonna come to you. Yeah, so we'll bring her in sometimes to get her question call, but
Are there buildings going in at the peninsula that we haven't seen?
there is a DRC next Wednesday for a potential another shed-ish larger building, which will be used with Nordic operations.
Okay.
That's coming to DRC, so then it will come to you.
Okay, so nothing right now has been
Nothing.
approved. Somebody came to me the other day and said, I heard there's 2 new buildings going in and out at the PRA this summer. It's like.
There's some shed relocations, like they want to take some shed that they put in for COVID for ticketing and put it up on the top of the magic carpet, like there's shuffling, but no, there's no.
Yeah, because it would have to, I know single family don't come in front of us,
Correct.
but
You've
something
seen-
out there we
Oh,
would
yeah.
have to see. right?
Yes, you've seen them
Why
before.
did they stop plowing that upper lot? That was like the locals lot to
Yeah.
get. to
Thank
the-
you, Kelsey.
I mean, like it says signage, parking 700 feet, and it is totally a slap in the face to all locals. I'm sorry, that's like,
So this-
Yeah.
you have to
It's weird
interface
that
with the
occasionally
Nordic
there
Center
is
now.
The reasoning behind it, whether it's right or wrong, is that there were too many people poaching the Nordic trails because the locals would park there and poach without passes. And they felt that they could control that better if everyone had to park at the ball fields.
And it's also still a national like park, isn't it? Like, it just seems ridiculous and
is
it was like a slap in the face.
I fully agree and I have complained every year and doesn't go anywhere, but
You can talk to
Listen.
Pete, Nordic
Yeah.
Center manager.
Like, I'm sure you got plenty of people using things like have an Nordic
Also-
pass free through and I still don't even poach or go there. I just have my dog. I want to go down where it's dog friendly. Cause then I have to interface with everybody.
Get warmed up right away.
It's just that, like, I'm trying to not interface with people that are Nordic skiing and people get upset when you have a dog. Doesn't matter.
where are you supposed to park if you want to go where she's still at
Yeah.
the bottom?
Of the hill, go
There.
all the way up, like in the baseball field parking is the first.
Oh, I know,
parking
but
spot.
if you want to, oh, you have to
Yeah.
park there to go where
To go down and use a public.
I know, that's true. It's not a planning commission thing, but I agree with you.
Oh, I have so many snow complaints, so I'll find the right people to give them to.
I had also heard, not to continue this, but I had also heard that it has something to do with feces, like not animal feces. I'm like, I can't imagine, but anyway. All right, anyway, any other updates?
Yes, I'm just reading that one so I don't forget in the minutes.
I have I wrote to you, I think there was the paper, they put out a request for bids for 602 Colleen, is that correct? So that would be a request for proposal for someone to build the job,
Structure.
infrastructure, that's what that was.
Yeah, the contractor who NHP has already submitted a building permit plans. They haven't gotten their building permit yet. the town Public Works put out a RFP to get somebody, a contractor to do the infrastructure work and groundwork, and that will include some of the parking that's required to be improved on the side streets and streets adjacent. Last week at the council, they approved a first reading. There was a $4.1 million gap still, and the council gave them that money on a first reading directly. And that means that they, in theory, have enough money to move forward. So the town will enter a contract with, they're working out the contract detailers in response to the infrastructure improvements. They will then have that start in theory in the end of the month or May, that work. And then the construction is planned to start vertical this summer.
So, but the total subsidy that the town is contributing is like $9 million, right?
And this is the first one to happen.
602, right.
Galena, $9 million is the subsidy now, which is almost 5 or 4.1 more than before.
All those prices have gone up. That's just indicative, right? I mean, any material, labor, it's crazy how much it is now.
Um,
In the
Town
stock
project.
market.
I mean, in a lot of, it basically is a town project, so.
no, I know, but it's
Next
a lot of
item.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the other thing I was gonna say, I don't know if you guys know, but HUD published the AMIs for 2025 Monday, and they're up 10%. So that's the third year in a row that they've gone up 10%.
Much. Crazy. For those of you who are following our deed restricted covenant, including resale price, that's coming back in May, early May. We'll have that May 3rd, whatever that first council meeting is. We're bringing that discussion back now that we have the new council members and they're getting onboarded. So we'll go back to that discussion in May.
Great.
All right, let's see, other ones I had, if you didn't read your email well from Kim, regarding this meeting, there was a code for trash updated was in that email. And so if you still use trash and recycling and compost through the town, the code for the dumpster out here was in that email. The wash bay was also in that email, the updates on the wash bay. And April 17th, we do have a meeting, which is in 2 weeks. You'll see McDonald's, and we have published third or fourth.
For
Yeah, this is fourth.
fourth.
You'll see the fourth sketch plan review of Seth 200 North 7th. And
The updated plans were just put on the website, right before this meeting.
Was it said that they do plans?
They have new
Or
plans.
Adam.
New plans.
I got another revision today at noon.
Do you have more footage again?
we won't get into that.
I just want to let you know, if you want to go look at it, it's on the,
Okay.
It's on there.
Okay.
yeah.
And
Again, I might not be here on the 17th, so Andy, you might have to chair. If anything,
It was there. Oh,
I was wondering why, I was like, man, Andy might know, I'm giving the gavel.
I couldn't tell if she was there for the meeting. I forgot.
I was wondering, I was like, everyone's going or what?
Andy's the vice chair.
I might be online, but I don't know if you want me to chair from online. So,
No, I'd rather not.
okay.
17th.
We will have a lot of public comment on that particular meeting, so.
Because of the 700.
The project.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's
And
gotten much.
my last update on my list is that we have, the monitors have been removed in front of you if you haven't noticed.
They make
And
a-
I have already heard feedback that that is not supported, and we will ask that they at least keep the technology in, so staff will start plugging them in, assuming they don't take away the capability, the monitors.
Why? Want them back?
Well, I mean, I had a hard time.
I can't see that.
That's,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had a hard time
so
seeing.
if you have plans and you're trying
And you're trying to look at plans.
They
Yeah.
they were
It's a little
taking.
strokey sometimes in front of us anyway. Not sure what's better, but.
Maybe if we connect them each meeting, well, maybe it'll get connected a little better. I don't know, but that was the end of my.
And Andy can testify, you watched your screen the whole time. You never looked up. Hardly ever.
Yeah, no, and I was hoping I had my monitor
Yeah.
so I could look at it.
And
So-
I can't see that screen either. I totally get it.
See this very well either, even though it's right here, it's just a lot of glare and.
So I'm gonna let them know that to
Can't
please
give
keep
us
it
something
in.
to take away, Doug, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's not what we want.
That's it for me.
Motion to
Thank you.
adjourn?
I just want to say, I think your email acknowledged Emma and like her, I know she's not here, but like, I've also emailed her and she's been very helpful. So pass it along that I feel
Appreciate
like
it.
she's.
Thanks. It's always
doing a
nice to
great
get
job.
compliments on people,
Yes.
so. thank you.
Yes.
Awesome.
And great work, all of you.
And I've heard the same thing from a friend that is really testy. She loves them.
Awesome. Excellent. Yeah. We decided we let her
Vote
take a
her
little
back.
vacation. Well, here it is.
Emma hasn't gone anywhere.
Oh, yes, sorry.
She saved it for this month.
Yeah,
She's got good vacations right now.
yeah.
She's on
Vacation.
good
She's on vacation.
Oh,
And
yeah.
boy, can we tell that she's on vacation.
She's missed by Kim and Chris
Yeah.
right now.
Or she's still your employee.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, that was my confusion.
No, did you wonderful and I will.
I forgot, I
have no
met
one in
Emily, but I
contact
forgot,
with her.
Emily left, still here.
Yes, everybody is still here as of the last 6 months. No one has
Okay.
put in a notice in 6 months, I think.
Yeah.
No, I tell them that all the time. So, so far, I think 6 months, maybe more now, we've had full staff.
Yeah, I think it's 9. No.
We are hearing good things about the building department too, just to pass.
Good,
that
I'm
on.
happy to hear that.
Yes.
I've been
Definitely.
really, really impressed by his customer service that I've seen and heard. So, great, thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Passes unanimously.
Kim and Kelsey, can we pick your, sorry, not me, no, with Kelsey and Candace.